Good evening, everyone out there. Welcome, and also a Happy New Year. Keep forgetting to mention Happy New Year to everyone because, well, yeah, just glad 2020's over with, aren't you, James?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a rubbish year, but hopefully 2021's better. But lockdown 3.0, yeah, not great.
Well, luckily we have some great action-packed racing for you for the next 4 weeks in GT3 and then another 4 weeks of GT4. But of course, we're watching the RWB GT 2021 season with the inaugural round here at, well, James, where are we at today?
Yeah, this is Imola, a very famous track. Many a tricky corner. Obviously, the place where the Senna lost his life, unfortunately, but some upgrades have been made since then to make the track safer and slow the cars down. But some great combinations of corners and produced some great racing and lots of tricky elevation changes as well, which is really good fun to see them try and comprehend that as well.
Definitely. Yeah, just introduce ourselves quickly for people who are new to the stream. I'm Josh, and with me is James Kell, who's, well, what do you do in your spare time, James?
In my spare time, just doss around really and drive some cars around circuits, you know. That's about it, really.
Well, I'll toot your horn for you. He's a British GT driver, so he likes to pretend he knows what he's on about, but of course, yeah.
Oh, I don't really have a clue.
He doesn't have a clue whatsoever. But yeah, we're here at Imola, and James, well, seeing how you're a racing driver,
Yeah.
just take us around the track, you know. Let's hop on board. Well, let's stay on board with a mole, and yeah, tell us what he's doing.
Well, you've got initially a long straight. He's coming up to the hairpin now, GT7, Tulsa. Yeah, we'll follow him around. So this is quite a tricky hairpin, slightly uphill. Exit. You want to get a good run up the hill, obviously, because you'll be losing speed up there. So you come into a blind braking zone at Peralta, which is quite a tricky one to get right. You can usually run wide and get track limits there. Then you come into Aqua Minerale, which is really sort of quick right-hander, and then you've got to get straight into the stop for the next right-hander, which is uphill. Again, sometimes the front end of the car can push a little bit, depending on what you're driving. Coming up to Ranti Alta, this is a really tricky sort of right-left chicane. The curves are really aggressive there, and it can get a bit slippy on the exit occasionally, so you've got to get really tidy and go once on the throttle to get a really good run down to Rivazza. This is a tricky braking zone because it's downhill, so you've got to brake a little bit earlier than you think. Get the nose in and just wait, because it just induces a lot of understeer at that second last corner, and then just got to get a really neat and tidy exit onto this long straight, because if you get that wrong, you lose a lot of time. You can just lose tenths down the straight if you get a bad exit. So yeah, it's a really tricky track, and the first two complex of the corners quite technical as well. Tamburello, which is coming up now. As we've seen coming into the braking zone, you've got sort of to sacrifice the left a little bit to get a decent run through the right, but then you don't want to go too wide because you need to get a really good run through the left here on the way down to Villeneuve. So yeah, some great combinations of corners and some real sort of thought behind the racing line and how to attack them is key really to a good lap time around here.
I'm gonna admit, you did actually pretty well for someone who got thrown under the bus there.
Yeah, you did throw me under the bus a little bit.
But yeah, Andre Mole, he seems to have absolutely no problem navigating that. But yeah, it's going well. Of course, this is free practice right now. Everyone's had about, I think, 2-3 weeks setting qualifying times before the race. So after this, once everyone's kind of got their eye in on the track in the next 6 minutes and 50 seconds, we'll be straight into a race. And geez, it's a long race. I mean, compared to what most people drive in sim racing, not many people do 18-minute races, do they?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for sure, and I think it's more realistic, to be perfectly honest. The longer races and having the sort of more endurance style races in these type of cars, because that's predominantly what they're built for. Is races that are an hour or more. So 80 minutes is a decent stint really, and is what you'd usually expect to be driving anyway as an endurance driver.
Yeah, I mean, I personally prefer the shorter sprint races of 15 minutes because it's just it's hell let loose. But luckily, we're watching Tier 1 tonight, so hopefully, while these guys are quick, I recognise so many names on that list, especially from the Paul Ricard race, the 12 hours of Spa, but even the RST series last season, which we actually commentated a bit, James, if you remember Kyalami with you, me, and Alex.
Back in the day. Back
in the day seems like a long time ago.
It really does.
Fortunately for Alex, who normally joins us on the commentary, he is doing this series, and I say unfortunately because he's down in Tier 2, because he just left everything to the last minute, so he can only blame himself. But yeah, it's. I mean, having raced with a couple of these guys before, it's tough. Like, they are really properly switched on compared to me, and I can't wait to actually see the action on track tonight. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, everyone keeps it clean, which is what we want to see.
Exactly. Good clean racing, GT3 cars, doesn't always go together.
Definitely. Well, I've got the rundown of who's where, who's doing what, and let me see if my camera work actually lives up to what I'm meant to be doing. So in P1 we have Valerie Solheim in the number 11 McLaren, followed by P2 Tavarian in the Mercedes, with Butrek in P3. Very close, those guys, in the timing sheets we saw. I believe, James, you were quite surprised how close it was between those top three guys.
I think it was between the top two. I think it was 500ths of a second, I think, if I remember correctly. But,
very close between them.
Yeah, very close.
In P4 we have Christopher Streppen. Very weird to see him outside of a Bentley, but he's in his Nissan today, with Alex Rogers in P5 in the Mercedes. In P6 and P7 we have Carolia and Dur, respectively, with Ulrich in P8 in the BMW. Mark Elgard, weirdly, is not in his Honda, as we saw last season, but he is down in P9, with Gretschel in P10. Next we have Jerome Roiling. Sorry, it's a bunch of foreign names to me, but I'm trying to work out the pronunciation of. We have Jerome Roiling in P11, followed by Carzolia in P12. Olivier Curtin is in P13, with Van Rooyen in P14, with Peter Peck in P15. In P16, 17, and 18, we have Emo Plate, Phil Varley, and Sam Snelltrain. Sam Snelltrain's usually higher up from what we've seen before, but hopefully he can make up some places in the very beginning. In P19, we have RWB Nepone, with Daniel Barnett in P20. So yeah, it's like, for those who have watched before with us in previous streams, even the names in the top 20, those guys race hard and fierce, don't they, James? Like,
yeah, from what I've seen, they really go at it, and you can see from the timing sheets. I mean, they were all really close together. Not a massive spread between the top 20, to be honest.
No, but to round off the next final 20, we have Thiago Faria in P21, with Gunpowder Therapy in P22. Cool name. We have Claudio Voodoo in P23, with Alistair Clinch in P24, RWB Helmet in 25th, Adam Sharp in 26th, Dor in 27th, and RWB Pinpoint in P28. Rick Binnersley is in P29, with Martin Schaefer rounding out in P30. Simon Tribeck is in P31, with Matthew Halley close behind. Andre Mole, who we were on with earlier, for that lap guided by James, in P33, with RWB Audi in P34. Graham Blackadder is in P35, with Jody Barraclough in P36. Miko Sky in P37, Martin Pater in P38, and Jay Madley in P39. That rounds the top 40, and let's get on with the racing, shall we, James?
Oh, definitely. Let's get cracking.
So we'll watch, we'll see how the top guys do, but I know I love watching the mid-pack at the start, so we'll definitely hop on board with those guys. But hopefully we get a nice clean race underway today for the next 1 hour and 20 minutes. So yeah, let's do this. All rounding off around the corner. The last two corners very cleanly. No one doing a Grosjean, luckily, on the way to the line. And let's get some racing. Come on, guys, get your beers, get your cigs out. Let's do this. Let's have a nice fun race. Coming up to the line.
Clean.
Yeah. coming up to the line, which is a fair bit back, but they should be underway in the next 2 seconds. Boom, called it. Not quite.
Tense, very tense.
Very tense. And that's lights out, away we go. A beautiful pulling out by Elgard. Elgard got a blinding start compared to the Aston Martin in front of him as they come up now to the first corner, getting that nice Constantina effect. Hopefully everyone keeps it nice and safe as we go through. Unfortunately, we do see an Audi going off wide, or an Aston going off wide, but everyone seems to be making it very cleanly, surprisingly enough, although there looks like someone going off in turn 3. If we move back now to the mid-pack, and we see another car going off, that's another Mercedes, and a Porsche to follow with as well, getting punted off, and even more cars going off. I know race 1 of the season's usually quite hairy, but that's not what we want to see. Solheim now, he's just maintained the lead. He's managed to take advantage of the carnage behind him and has already built up a 0.6 second gap. Behind him, though, Christopher de Tavarian is leading a nice train of 3. All the way around, going through. I can't remember the names of the corners now, but going through this nice little complex as they head up now to the chicane at the top of the hill. What do you think, James?
I mean, Solheim's really built a decent gap on that opening lap, and I think the carnage behind him sort of helped him quite a lot there. As we see, what was that? Buchek get caught up on the on Ferrante Alistair. Curbing, and he's lost the position now to Rogers and Elgard. So it's a real shame, you know, he was up there in P3, but, you know, unfortunate mistake. Just clouted that inner curb a bit too much, pushed him out wide, and didn't get a good run out down the hill to the Ravazas. So, yeah, to be expected, really. But, I'm sure he'll be able to work his way back up if he can. But as you say, the man in P1's pulled a decent gap, especially so early on in the race.
Definitely, as we also saw Zolder going off at the very final complex of corners, but he's managing to still fight in the battle with MO plates as we're watching now on the helicam. I love the helicam because it shows everything as we see Carzolo going for the late dive, but he doesn't quite make it, and MO plate manages to keep the position. Beautiful stuff, absolutely.
I think there's going to be some hard racing here as we see even the 2 cars behind, was that Ocon and Farage, they're battling hard as well.
Definitely, we've still got fighting up ahead in the train with Alex Rogers, Ignacy Buchek, and Mark Elgard. And I'm sure you've seen it. Well, you've definitely seen it in real-world racing. How once you get in a train, it becomes a bit difficult to start making positions, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you start to lose sort of aero efficiency, and then you start destroying the front tyres a bit more. So the guys out front usually do better on tyre management than the guys who are following the train. But it's quite difficult to overtake around here actually because of the nature of the track and a lot of right-left combinations of corners, and a lot of fast entries like into here into Aquamirale. You can't really dive down that fast right-hander because you've got to get straightened up for the braking zone for the next right. So it is a really tricky track to overtake on. It's usually done into the braking zones or into the Ravazas really. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
Definitely popping back on the autopilot for the cams so I can catch. My fingers can get a bit of a break from the clicking. But we're currently on board watching RWB Pinpoint as he's currently going round. He was fighting Tom Weaver, but it looks like Tom Weaver's had a bit of a squirrel as we see another BMW ahead of him of RWB Audi getting all out of shape, and now that's going to give Pinpoint an opportunity to basically outburr him on the straights. But of course, both BMWs, so they both know the kind of strengths and weaknesses, and I kind of have the same car effectively, apart from the setup. But I remember you telling me a lot of the time about setup being, well, it could be worth seconds if you get it right.
Yeah, especially around here. I mean, when we've raced in the past, even in a Assetto Corsa, I mean, you could find seconds in the setup on those GT3 cars. Less so on the Assetto Corsa competition. Usually the balance performance on here is pretty good. But it's crucial, especially getting the damping correct around here, because you've got a lot of curbing to deal with, and that can be difficult for some cars.
Definitely, but it seems like these guys are pretty switched on. As we see, someone went off at the top of the hill here. It looks like they've gone back to the pits of Looks like Mark Carolia has gone back to the pits. I wonder if that's irreparable damage that he's gone back to the pits for, which is a shame, but unfortunately incidents happen, especially close racing like this that we're seeing today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's to be expected, really. I mean, rubbing is racing, as we all know, so, you know, there's a give and take, and it's just trying to be respectful when you're racing on track and giving, you know, everyone a car's width, but nothing more, and that has always been the way in racing. So, yeah, to be expected, but unfortunately, you don't want to see people out of the race, and hopefully we can get them back out on track as soon as possible, really.
Definitely, just because you go off, it's not the end of the world, especially with it being a 1 hour, 20-minute race. There's so much time to kind of still work your way forward. Other people can have retirements. It's really not the end of the world.
You can still have great racing, you know, wherever you are on track. I mean, we'll see throughout this race there'll be racing all up and down the field. And sometimes even the best racing can be further back in the pack, really. And that's just sometimes the case.
Definitely. As we're watching now, Elgard having to defend off Alex Rogers. I was about to say they're in the same car, but of course, Elgard, for some reason, has decided that he wants to run the old-style Mercedes with Alex Rogers in the new one. Which,
that's quite strange. Yeah. I think the new 2020 update seems to go really well around Imola last time I drove it. I'm not sure how it fares up these days, if there's been any more patches.
Yeah, it seems to be working pretty well. Switching back now to Nepone, he's managed to get an easy pass around Peck, who looked like he went off at that complex down the hill. Don't worry, I've finally got my my map up, so I can finally tell you what the names are down at Minerale. But yeah, that was a beautiful opportunity taken by Nepone to try and get past Peck.
Yeah, and you've got to take every opportunity you can to try and make up ground in these sorts of races and get yourself into the right position for you, really. You want to just lap as consistently as possible, because that's usually how you do well in endurance racing, is just banging in those lap times, no matter what happens, even if you're stuck in traffic or you're trying to get past people.
Definitely. Currently watching Tom Weaver, who just managed to get past RWB Pinpoint, it looks like, to take P31. We'll see the timings update. For people who are watching, if you want to see the live timings like we do, go check out Pitwall Live. I'm pretty sure there's a link in the description, and you can definitely check out. And you won't miss any of the action or the commentary, which will be fantastic, because we're currently, we're watching right now. You're seeing the same stream we are.
Interesting to point out, though, 3 out of the top 5 cars are Mercedes currently.
Definitely. I want to give a shout out to Crawford as well. He's busy messaging me about how amazing the racing is right now. And yeah, he's also saying anyone is more switched on than me, which, yeah, that's true. And Moyes saying 2015 is better than 2020. That's a pretty strong statement for especially the new Mercedes around Imola. But yeah, if anyone has anything, if you want to chat to us or ask any questions or just want to support your boy or your lass in the race, definitely type it in the chat and we'll give you a cheeky shout out. But back to the racing. No more of my rambling. Back to the racing. Back on board with Nepone. I keep swapping between these two packs because the timing screens are lighting up for me. And yeah, Nepone he's currently defending Peck again, after Peck made that mistake earlier, but it looks like Peck he's not wanting to back down. He's wanting to still fight this out and kind of go, you know what, it wasn't a fuck up, it was, you know, tactical, you know.
Tactical.
It was a tactical goal. But luckily, yeah, he's still in with the fight, and like it's only been 9 minutes of action, and I feel like we've seen an entire race.
And these two cars, Nepone and Peck, the BMW and the Bentley, in theory are quite similar in style. You know, front ends. Well, in reality, they're front mid-engine cars. Rear-wheel drive, lots of power between the two of them, so they've got a lot of grunt down the straights, and probably don't have as much finesse in the corners, but as some of the mid-engine cars. So it's going to be a great battle between these two, I think. Similar equipment.
would you be willing to say it's a battle of Britain right now between these two giants? So,
quite possibly. Except neither car is technically British.
yeah, true. They are both German now, aren't they? Well,
Yes.
yeah. Sad times, but ignoring that, let's get back to the racing. So we see Roiling now trying to. It looks like he's overtaken Ulrich. No, he's trying to hold off Carzolia. So I'm getting all my names confused. There's so many cars on track at the moment. It's great. But yeah, we've currently got Roiling trying to fend off Carzolia, and well, it looks like Roiling has managed to hold on for another lap as we go down towards Tamburello. But it's a really good opportunity for a dive bomb here.
Yeah.
Sorry, tactical late braking.
You need to employ the Joshua Barton method of defence, in my opinion.
Well, of course, yeah, it's patent pending, of course. But yeah, it's. I don't mean to speak like a professional here, but the trick with defending is just trying to predict where he wants to go. And it looks like Roiling's managing to do that pretty well against Carzolia, but I'm sure Carzolia will bring out the moves at some point and figure out what he's doing and how to deploy it.
The trick with defending is keeping the car behind while not slowing yourself down too much. So, because you want to take the opportunity, any opportunity you can to pull away from them. As you see, the Aston is in this case a little bit there through that section. So you need to picture where your car is faster or slower than the car behind or the car in front, and really nail those sectors that suit your car.
Definitely, as you see, Dor making a fantastic late braking maneuver. Or was that a defend? That looked like a defend from Butchek as they went through Variante Alta, heading down now to Rivazza. But I wonder if it's really crucial, because the problem I have is well, I say problem, it's what's great about defending is if someone's behind you for too long, you can figure out exactly what their moves are going to be.
Exactly, yeah.
And
I think on this track as well, it lures you into certain overtaking moves as well with some of the tricky corner combinations, so you can sort of predict where to defend and where to attack, really. And as we see, Butchek send it. Oh, wow, that was a really nice move onto her. Really late braking there, had confidence in the Ferrari there to get it stopped on the nose, and made the pass work, and hopefully can pull a gap. Wow, there's so much action on track at the moment.
Yeah, there is tons. I'm currently trying to figure out which battle we want to see most, but right now I think I've chosen correctly, because you see now Tom Weaver battling out with Barraclough going into Tamburello, and it looks like Barraclough's going round the outside. Fantastic move as he manages to pull it off. It looks like Barraclough's going to have to slot him behind Weaver. That was brilliant.
That was really nice racing. It's nice to see such a big Bentley fighting finesse and McLaren.
Definitely, but now it looks like Barraclough is going to have to keep his head back on, as he's now trying to get passed by Sharp. And Sharp again goes around the outside. And
looks like he's struggling with rear traction a little bit in that McLaren. Especially coming out of Villeneuve there, he seemed to get on the throttle and kick around a little bit. Maybe he just needs to adjust his traction control a little bit there to keep it in line a bit more.
Nothing wrong with traction control. If you've got it, you use it. But it looks like Trebek is now under pressure from Tom Weaver. It looks like Weaver is, well, he's just going full out elbows. Let's go. Let's battle it out. It looks like he's just wanting to get all the moves done as fast as possible, as we see them now coming up to Variante Alta. And yeah, I didn't think a late braking maneuver was going to work, but Trebek going... Well, he just went off the runway there.
He must have had a 5-inch thick sump guard on that thing.
But it looks like he managed to pull it off perfectly well. Just have to be careful with the track limits on this. There's 3 track limit warnings, and then on your 4th track limit cuts, that's a drive-through for you.
Yeah, and that really kills your race if you get a drive-through, because it puts you out of position, and then you have to constantly fight back through the field. So, as we see some contact there between Plate and Napone. Ferrari coming off worse, but Napone doing the right thing, waiting for Plate to get back on track.
Very gentlemanly.
That is very gentlemanly, yeah. That's what we like to see at RWB as well.
Yeah, very good seeing Napone holding up his, staying gentlemanly, Because after all, we're all just sitting down in chairs in our nice, comfy shared house, basement, attic, wherever you can fit a sim in. And yeah, like there's no need to get gloves out or be a bit of a dick about it. But yeah, luckily Nepone not giving plates any reason to get angry, and like putting his hand up and being like, yeah, that's my bad, I'll let you back through. I want to go back up to the top 5 at the moment. They've still got that nice train going with these guys. But I also wanted to point it out, Solheim and Severian's lead at the moment. Because they're not defending, they've just managed to pull away massively with that massive gap.
Yeah, I think, if these two can manage their tyres and manage that gap, they're going to be on for a 1-2 at least, or maybe we might see them close up near the end if Severian can maybe get his foot down a little bit in that Mercedes, because Solheim will definitely be probably a bit nippier through the corners in the McLaren.
Definitely.
We know that thing's good on the brakes as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Severian's licking his lips in anticipation before going up to Solheim. Had to slot it in there somehow.
Yes,
back down with Blackadder, because I've been watching a lot of Blackadder recently. It looks like he's been fighting quite hard, but what I'm seeing is a Bentley behind him, but no Bentley on the time sheets behind Blackadder. So I wonder if it looks like Pinpoint had a slight whoopsie somewhere. Hopefully he's not out of the race, but yeah, it looks like he had a slight whoopsie and has fallen down a couple of positions.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate. Pinpoint's usually a bit higher up the field than that, but yeah, good to see he's still racing, obviously, and maybe this Bentley's a lapped car of some description.
That would make sense. It could be Jake Moore, who's currently 3 laps down, but I mean, with the blue flags, you don't have to, if you're a lapped car, you don't have to let them by. As we see Blackadder getting a little bit pear-shaped, coming out of Tosser,
yeah,
let's call it Tosser. His car acting like a Tosser and going a little bit squirrely there. Unfortunately, lost the position to Schaefer. No, yeah, Schaefer. But yeah, he's still got an hour left. There's still plenty of time, and still plenty of action. So another car.
There's a car off at Verante Alta. To rejoin by now, but I just saw someone. I just saw dirt.
Yeah, it looks like they've managed to rejoin. Okay. Looking back up the field, we've still got a nice train in P3 all the way to P7, with Elgard leading it in P3 with Verstappen, Rogers, Buchek in P6, and Duhur in P7. Those guys, I wonder if we'll actually see any battling between them, or if they're just going to sit there and try and work their way up, because they're close enough to P1 in terms of positioning that if they cooperate, maybe they could get closer to P2, and then they can fight out.
You've got to try and work together in some situations, especially when there's an hour to go. I mean, if they start battling hard, the top two are going to pull away, and sort of is a known entity at that point. If they manage to pull even bigger gap, it's going to be really difficult for that train to catch back up again. So hopefully they can pull a 200 IQ play here and work together.
Definitely, although it looks like Buchek was wanting to have a cheeky fight with Rogers going into Variante Alta, into that braking zone, but it may have compromised Buchek as Dor now comes down the inside, and it looks like he's managed to slot it in perfectly. So Buchek he just got a little bit impatient on wanting to pass, and Dor just took full advantage.
Exactly. I mean, he got a really good run out of Variante Alta down into the Ravazzas, and just slotted down the inside really, and it was done. To be perfectly honest, had the inside for the first lap and just kept it for the next onto the pit straight.
Definitely, it's good to see that nice close clean racing though. Back up with plates. It looks like he's trying to have a bash at Nepone, or Nepone's trying to have a bash at plates. Sorry. But as we come up now to Tamburello, Nepone diving down the inside, and that's it. Job done for Nepone.
Job done. Yeah. Lick the Samp, sent it, and it got delivered.
I do like Nepone's delivery though.
it's more
it's
your
a
style,
seriously, yeah, it's a seriously cool
Bold.
livery.
It needs a mullet though for it to be fully your sort of livery.
Definitely. Swapping aboard with Audi now, as he's getting passed by Schaefer, and looks like Schaefer got the elbows out a little bit, but you know it's still clean. Robin's racing and all that. But yeah, what do you think about this weaving that we've seen a couple of guys do on the straights? You know, just do you think it's trying to let their brakes cool a little bit, or I'm not too sure. It's just, what do you think?
I mean, you could suggest that they're trying to break the toe. Between Tamburello and Villeneuve isn't really going to do much, to be honest. I mean, you've got maybe down the pit straight, but if you're weaving all over the track, then you're going to be increasing the distance travelled basically, and slowing yourself down and putting more energy through the tyres that you don't really necessarily need to be doing. So, I mean, it's up to each driver and what they feel is best, especially if they've got a lower powered car in comparison to something higher powered. Maybe they really do need to break that toe just a little bit to give them a slight advantage. But in reality, it doesn't really do massive amounts.
Definitely. But we're now following Trebek and Weaver, and it looks like Trebek's managed to get the job done on Weaver. Oh, there's 3 Bentleys. It's confusing me.
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, it looks like Weaver's managed to pull away, but Trebek, I have a feeling that might be a back marker.
I think it is. I think was it Moore that was coming through?
Might be. If it is Moore, he's not slouching about, is he? He's just going for it.
No, he's on a mission, and I mean, he's got 58 minutes to do that, but to be 3 laps down, that's a tall order to try and get back in the race at this point. But you know, it's anything can happen in racing. So you know, if he keeps his nose clean for the rest of the race and really just gets his foot down, he can maybe make a bit of progress. But we'll see.
I have to agree with you. On that. Jeez, I can't speak at the moment. But yeah, currently we're seeing people pitting as well. We've seen Audi, Buchek, Pinpoint, Shementinsky, all pitting because the pit window is now open for the next 50 minutes. So basically, open all the way through until 5 minutes from the end. But I have a feeling everyone will have pitted by the 1 hour 5 minute mark, because that's usually kind of the range that these cars can do. Apart from the Nissan, which weirdly can go for like 1 hour 15. It's ridiculous how long that can go for. But yeah, it's going well for those guys. But of course, yeah, Moore is just not starting about whatsoever. And do you know what I see, James? I see a drive-through penalty for Barraclough.
I was about to say.
Yeah. And that'll be the track limit warnings that we were talking about earlier. But yeah, that's unfortunate for Barraclough, but of course, rules are rules, you know, and you have to stick with the regs.
Yeah, it's one of the sort of there's more of a fine line there in sim racing, whereas in the real world you can usually get away with quite a bit. That's one of the better things about real world racing than sim racing. But sim racing, you know, if you crash, you click the reset button and you're pretty much back out on track without much of a hindrance.
Yeah, no insurance forms. But it looks like what we just
need more than that box to tell the insurance company what happened in racing.
But we saw there Adam Sharp letting Jake Moore pass, but it looks like he also let more than Jake pass. It looks like he let Weaver pass as well. So I wonder if he just kind of ended up on the wrong line to let Moore pass, but whatever it was, it's not helped Adam whatsoever. Especially as now he's kind of coming under pressure from Trebek.
Yeah, very unfortunate. I mean, around here, if you slip up in certain places, you can really hinder yourself and let people through, as we've seen just then.
Yeah, Moore's not slouching about whatsoever. He's still plucking away at the midfield on his mission to try and get back in the race. He's got, if he can keep this pace up, bravo. Like, he's got some serious pace right now, and luckily he's not making any stupid dive bombs or anything. He's just kind of hoping that they'll move out of the way for him. But yeah, it's just It's getting close now. It's getting close,
Yeah,
especially.
I mean,
Well,
he's allowed to do this. He's allowed to unlap himself. Even when blue flags are being shown to him, if he's faster than the person in front, he's allowed to unlap himself. So as we've seen even in F1 with Ocon and Verstappen.
oh, you're bringing back painful memories for me.
Obviously, it doesn't always go in the right direction, but I'm sure these guys can get it right.
Definitely, we've just seen now on screen Martin Schaefer getting past Dan Barnett. That move seemed like it was done before the corner even came into view. But that Porsche is just hopeless on the straights. It's got absolutely no power for the top speed, especially compared to that Lexus, which is just absolutely mental. I never thought the Lexus would be a power car, but Jesus, it just goes like the clappers, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely got some grunt to it. And the Porsche obviously is a bit more of a finesse car. You've got to drive it hard to get times out of it.
It looked like Weaver was going to try and follow Jake Moore through as well, behind Gretschel. And it looks like it's paid off again. There was some contact there, but all in the spirit of racing, as you see now, Weaver getting past quite. There was a bit of a fight, but at least it was resolved fairly peacefully. But now we've got Adam Sharp chasing up behind Gretschel as well, being like, you know what, Weaver's got past. I want to get past. Let me through.
Yeah, Gretschel did a better job in defending into the Ravazzas there than he did into Variante Alta. I think the pass with Weaver was done at Acqua Minerale, really. He got a better run out of the corner and gone down the inside for Variante Alta, so yeah, job done. But great racing.
Yeah, definitely. As we see now, Barraclough's in the pits to serve his drive-through. Very unfortunate for the drive-through, but, well, you know what they say, James? It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
A lot of gaps opening up now, as it seems like people are getting settled for kind of simmering down a bit, realising how much time's left on the clock. But there's no gap opening up between Nepone and Plates right now. It seems like Plates determined to make that move back, that position back that he kind of lost earlier.
Yeah, I mean, these two have been fighting the whole race thus far, and it's been close all the way. The BMW will be stronger in certain areas, whereas the Ferrari will be stronger in the other sectors. So it's going to be a close race between these two, and it seems like they have very equal pace throughout a lap, as we see the Beamer just pull away on the straight. So Plate must be doing a really great job to keep that minimum speed up through the apexes and catch the Beamer back up in the corners.
Definitely. As we're currently watching Dor, interesting name, Dor being fought by Tom Weaver again. Weaver he's no slouch, is he? He's just going for it, isn't he?
I think this is
is that Jake Moore again?
Yeah, it's Moore again.
These Bentleys, man. I was looking, I was like, whoa, Weaver's made up a lot of time. But no, Dor getting...
Oh, wait.
Yeah, but it looks like Dor doesn't really want to let Moore past, but I'm sure he'll realise that Moore isn't a threat at this present time, and for the interest of both of them, just let him pass.
Dor should really use Moore to his advantage. I mean, as he's done, he's let him through, not really defended too much, but just sit behind Moore and let him catch up to the Audi in front, and hopefully he can utilise Moore's move to his advantage and get past the Audi. So, as we see, an oversteer moment there. So, spoken too soon.
Yeah, that was the number 31 Audi of Faria. But yeah, it looks like Moore's managed to get past Faria, but unfortunately, no opportunity has been presented for Dor. That name. But yeah, it's still getting spicy, especially between Trebek and Sharp. It looks like Sharp is still trying to fight this one out all the way through. So they go now through Acqua Minerale.
Yeah.
We're probably butchering the Italian right now, but
oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah, as they head up now towards Variante Alta, don't think Sharp's going to make a move there in the braking zone, which he doesn't. It's one thing to kind of go for a send, but another thing to full-on torpedo give it the full Daniel Kivat treatment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think to make a move into Variante Alta, you have to be right on the bumper of the car in front, coming out of Acqua Minerale. So it's always a tricky corner to dive bomb into because of those curves as well. I mean, if you just clout those curves a little bit too much, you're thrown off the racing line completely, or you're nudged into the car next to you. So it's a tricky corner to overtake on, but if you're close enough, you can make a move into there.
Definitely. Someone who's made a wrong move is Dor. It looks like he's dropped back from the top 6 battle. He's currently fighting Peter Peck right now, as we see on our feed. But I'd be quite interested to see what happened to Dor, because he was doing phenomenally well up in the top 6 pack. But it seems like, don't know, maybe just clipped the sand too much or had a little bit of a moment. But hopefully now we'll see a bit of fighting into Variante Alta and moves done even before he gets there.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed very confident. De seemed very confident on the brakes with the Aston there. So, yeah, move was done pretty early on, and he seems to be charging for that top battle at the moment, which obviously he's fallen back from. So hopefully he can get himself back up there and fight his way through.
Definitely, as we see now, Solheim and Severian are starting to lap traffic, which is interesting for them, but it's confusing for me with the gaps. But luckily, as we see on stream, Solheim's still managing to keep that massive gap ahead of Severian, which he's had from the very start of the race. He just needs to kind of walk it in, doesn't he?
Yeah, he just needs to manage that gap, manage his tyres, and decide on a good point to pit really, and try and see if he can come out with clean air. I mean, the last thing he wants to do is come out in a lot of traffic and hinder himself, because that's where Tavarian could get the jump on him if he gets a good release into clean air and not stuck behind other cars. So, I mean, they've done a good job thus far of getting past traffic without being hindered too much. As you can see, the gap between them has remained at about the 4 to 5 second mark. So, yeah, no, some really good racing, but it seems like those two are somewhat in their own little race at the moment, because the P3 car has dropped to 15 seconds behind. So yeah, it's going to be close between them, and I think it's all going to hinge around how well they can time their pit stops and what sort of traffic they can get themselves out into. Definitely
back on board with Daniel Barnett, trying to chase down Voodoo, and it's been close. I've been watching the gap between these two, and he's feeling it. I've like looking from the gap, he's kind of yo-yoing behind Voodoo, and it looks like he wants it. It looks like he really wants this position, and of course, higher position means higher points. But
exactly,
yeah, it's getting.
What do points equal, Josh?
Wins. Oh, prizes.
Wow.
Look, it's been a long day. It's been a long day of doing absolutely nothing in the flat. So,
points mean prizes, Josh. Come on.
Sorry, points mean prizes. In terms of prizes right now, Daniel Barnett he's still trying to go for it. But yeah, it looks like someone in the chat has said that Trebek is rejoining now. It looks like he got booted from the server, unfortunately, but hopefully he can get back in time. And he'll be able to battle Jake Moore, at least, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be a good battle to see.
Yeah, it's and also Jigsaw Bungie. His team's in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7th. MRT is doing what MRT does. He's watching his team at the front of the pack closely together. He's getting goosebumps. I wonder if there's going to be a multi-21 being brought in, because I don't know, it could get zesty at the front. We've seen it in the past between teammates, most notably, if you remember James, unless it was with Alex, we had the two Simsot guys punting each other off, fighting for position, which, especially when they're both, P4, P5, sometimes it does need a bit of communication between your teammates to say, let's simmer down, let's just get through the bulk of a race and fight at the end if we have to.
Exactly. I mean, we see that often with teammates and manufacturers. They often just say, we're not fighting till the last 2 laps, for example. So, they could sit in a train and react and then decide everything within the last 5 minutes, for example. So it could be interesting to see. I mean, that finish could be one to watch for sure. Whether it'll be sort of a Matt Neal scenario at Alton Park in the Hondas, where they were needing 1-2 in British touring cars, and he takes his teammate out in front of all the Honda guests that were there. So, you know, we don't want to see anything like that with these teammates, obviously, but you know, sometimes that makes good racing.
Yeah, it makes it entertaining for us, but definitely not for the guys in the team who've spent all that time. Most notably for me, what I remember is the two Astons in GT4 punting each other off at Brands, which yes. I was laughing my head off when I saw it, but for them,
I was laughing going down
their hair off. Yeah, I'm sure they were ripping their hair out. But yeah, it's great for us to watch, and I wish you boys the best of luck, Jigsaw Bungie, but we just can't, you know, can't be biased, you know, because I'm never biased.
Never.
Wonder how Alex is doing. But looking back now with Tiago Faria, and it looks like that slip up has let Weaver get past. That is Weaver this time, but
yeah, it seems like Faria's really been struggling with that complex of corners, especially that exit of Villeneuve there. He seems to have dipped a wheel in that gravel quite a few times now. I mean, we saw him. I think it was it Mola got past him, or famously someone in front of him got past him. I think it was Moore. Sorry, was coming up on him, and he dipped that wheel in the gravel as we've seen just before. And I think that seems to be his kryptonite at the moment on track. So if he can just nail that corner, I think, you know, his lap times are going to come down a bit. So and improve his consistency. So maybe just something to focus on throughout the race. I mean, he's got another 43 minutes to get that corner nailed. But there seems to be where he's losing quite a bit of time.
Definitely. Looking at Phil Varley now, we've not paid much attention to him. He got involved in the sort of the mishaps in lap 1. I seem to remember his orange and purple Aston going off road at Tamburello. But he's done well to get into P11, especially after that mess at the beginning. But yeah, he's still fighting it out, and it looks like he's trying to defend off Carzoli, but try and get past the lapped car.
Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, technically the blue flag cars don't have to move out of the way. I mean, in reality, they should just stay on the racing line, and it's the job of the car behind to pass them. So, you know, the McLaren, they're doing the right thing and just leaving that racing room on the inside for Varley to go through. But I mean, that could benefit Varley a little bit and hold up people behind him, the Mercedes behind him that's battling him. So. Yeah, I mean, it's all about using traffic to your advantage here, and Varley could, in reality, just back up the McLaren a little bit into the Mercedes and hope for a mistake. So it's, you know, it's swings and roundabouts in this game.
Definitely, it's very interesting for that. But it looks like Solheim has gone into the pits as we've just passed the halfway mark. Yeah, we're approaching the halfway mark. My maths are atrocious. Approaching the halfway mark, and it looks like Solheim's gone into the pits, dropping down from James, do you remember where he was? It was P1. It was P1.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
I've lost track, I'm sorry.
But yeah, we saw Carzoli also dive into the pits now. Maybe he wasn't wanting to try and battle that back marker to get past. And I mean, it's not battling, it's just trying to get past. But yeah, it looks like we see another car sitting on the inside. I'm hoping that's not anything too serious and we haven't missed any fisticuffs. But yeah, it's still plenty of action. I'm gonna swap over to some action we've got here with Buchet. No, not Buchet. That's Jake Moore again, trying to get past Miko Sky. Jake Moore's been a lap down. Well, he's been two. He must be 2 laps down now, behind the other cars. But he's still just powering through.
Does he still have a pit to go?
I believe he does.
Sure if he'd done his pit yet. Oh, no, as he just peels in there, I was just...
Yeah, just going into the pits now.
When that would happen. So he's having a great time racing, but obviously not in the position he wants to be in. And still had to come in for his mandatory pit stop.
Clicking all the wrong buttons now. Fortunately, with everyone going into the pits, this is when the action tends to kind of drop off a little bit, as everyone gets into their nice gaps, they can put in effectively their hot laps. But it's still going well. We've still got Verstappen plodding along. But look at that. It's currently a Mercedes 1, 2, 3 right now. You just hate to see it, don't you? Just hate to see it.
I'd say the Mercedes seem to cook around here, and improving at the moment, obviously, with some people in the pits. But interesting strategies here. I mean, what was it, the McLaren of Solheim going in for an early pit stop, hoping to maybe build a bigger gap with an undercut and fresher tyres over the P2 man. But of Tavarian, but I mean, he could be dragging out his initial stint to have fresher tyres for the end of the race. So it's just it's a call of the team really, and see what they think's the best strategy.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's no team strategies today, and it's just kind of, you know what, it's its own league. Let's just see how it goes. Best man wins. I'm hoping that's the case. And sorry, Jigsaw Bungie, if I'm definitely going to be saying, come on, Solheim, let's have a fight. Let's see who's got the real kahunas here between you, Severian, and Elgard. But yeah, I'm wondering if the traffic now that it's caught in, if that's going to kind of undermine his undercut.
Quite possibly. I mean, this is the problem you have with this sort of racing. I mean, he's got more behind him now as well, so it'll be interesting to see those two battle and see if Moore actually has the pace to be up with the front guys, which I'm sure he probably does. But yeah, Solheim definitely has some pace, but I think he might just get caught up with some traffic here. It'll be interesting to see what the Mercedes do at the front at the moment, whether they stagger their pit stops or they all come in at the same time. It will definitely play out in the end, but obviously we have to wait for all these pits to be done to really have an understanding of who's come out on top with those pit stops.
100%. Couldn't have said it any better, James. Looks like the majority. Looks like the majority of the cars have pitted, or at least the half the grid have pitted now. So hopefully we'll be able to find out what's happened with Solheim, if he's still managed to keep that P1, or if I wonder if Taveri and Elgard have managed to kind of have better fresh air to try and close the gap a bit. And of course, as you said, with the fresher tyres, and well, they'll probably be on the same fuel, but I wonder if they'll actually be able to properly fight it out.
Yeah, I mean, Solheim will just take that initial sheen off the tyre, with the pitting a few laps earlier. He'll have used the best of the tyre, really. Usually on these Pirellis, usually only get about, two to three good laps out of them at the start, and then they sort of lose that peak performance. You enter this sort of plateau, really, of the endurance style tyre, where it just lasts and does consistent lap times for quite a long time, no matter the fuel load. Because if you think their fuel is going to be depleting, so they're going to be getting lighter as their tyres degrading. So that's why you see quite consistent times usually throughout the race anyway, apart from those early ones where the tyre is really performing at its best.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully still plenty of time left. Still got 36 minutes 40 seconds on the clock, and we're currently watching Gunpowder Therapy, and to be honest, he's just kind of been in his own area. He's not actually been fighting many people from what we've seen, and he's just kind of plodding along as he pleases.
He's in the top 10, banging in consistent lap times, and really just staying out of trouble, and that could benefit him in the long run. I mean, you could see him come into play quite late on in the race. Some of these guys, especially the guys in front of him, they start battling. I mean, he'll be right on that pack. He just keeps the lap times consistent and keeps his nose clean, really, and that's what it's all about in this sort of racing, because anything can happen.
Definitely. We're currently seeing now Elgard has gone into the pits. He's about to come out, but the real question is he going to come out ahead of Solheim? Well, that answered that question, didn't it? It looks like Elgard's about looks like he's about 10 seconds behind Solheim. But I really need to check stuff before I say anything. But it looks like they're gonna have a I don't know. Solheim could get taken out by someone.
It looks like Solheim's come off better. I'd say his time just stopped. Preferably, as we see, Moore actually in front of him, so that's interesting. So Moore was behind Solheim, and it's technically a lapped car, but he's unlapped himself. So he's really showing his pace here, that he can be up with these front guys, and it's just been unfortunate for Moore. But yeah, Solheim, I think if he doesn't make any mistakes now, he's got this one sewn up really once all the pit stops have taken place.
Yeah, he just needs to kind of sit behind Moore and pass people, but to be honest, he doesn't really need to because everyone in front of him still hasn't pitted, although we see Tavarian now diving into the pits, trying to, take advantage of it a little bit. But as we see, Ulrich has now got a drive-through for track limits, which is very unfortunate. A very nice army-coloured, BMW, very slick, very clean. But yeah, it looks like he's got a drive-through now for track limits, which isn't something you want, especially with a pretty decent position on P21. He's not really had to fight anyone for it. He's just kind of sat there, as we've seen with the red McLaren that we were talking about earlier of gunpowder therapy. And yeah, he's just kind of had to dawdle along. It's just unfortunate he's now got that drive-through.
It's an unfortunate way to lose positions with drive-throughs and penalties, because it's somewhat out of your control. But I suppose if you're exploiting those track limits way too much, then you're going to get punished for it. And if you can just keep it, a few more millimeters to the left or to the right, and keep it clean and keep those lap times consistent. If some of these guys get drive-throughs, you can benefit if people in front of you are getting drive-throughs. So, yeah, and it's somewhat his own fault, really, but it's just one of the things of racing.
Well, James, you know what I'm going to say? It is what it is.
It is what it is.
We've just seen there, Solheim's managed to get past Binnersley, but he's now chasing down Farrier. And yeah, I'm kind of curious as to, is he going to wait for Farrier to go into the pit, or do you think he's going to make the move? He's going to make the move, isn't he?
He's going to have to. I think he's going to get him. Wow, he's got very close coming out of Variante Alta there. Those caves can be treacherous, as we've seen, but he sort of had to lift there, and that's compromised his opportunity into the Ravazzi's here. Maybe he can. Oh wow, he's going for a very
That's yeah, that didn't look like it was a move that was on, but
I think that was a lot of trust there between him and Farrier, that Farrier would move out of the way and would see. I think that may have been a slight mistake from Solheim there to actually go in that late on the brakes. And that downhill section can really catch you off guard, especially when you're following someone who's lost that front aero. You really take a lot longer to slow down than you actually think. So that could have been maybe a slight mistake there, but it all came out okay in the wash. And no one was really worse off.
yeah, definitely. It looks like Farrier. I mean, for Solheim, he could have just waited for Farrier to let him pass, because Farrier was never going to be ahead of Solheim, especially with a pit stop to go. For Farrier and Solheim, well, he's already completed all his stuff. He's not stopping anymore. But yeah, it did seem like it was kind of a mistake or a misjudgment on the brakes, because as you and I know, James, that McLaren is just so good on the brakes compared to the other cars. But it tends to slow down faster at the lower speeds.
Yeah, it's pretty exceptional in the braking, and I think around this track it's a good car, to be honest. It behaves itself quite well. If you've got it set up correctly, it can perform quite well on some of these tracks. And we know the braking is good, and he's on better tyres. I mean, ultimately you'll have a bit more fuel on board, but you can just see he's got this track nailed.
Definitely. Jumping back on board with Tavarian, it looks like he's currently trying to chase down Binnersley in the Ferrari ahead of him. As we see Farrier get taken off and he's punted. Looks like Binnersley off as well, which is unfortunate because he was having a nice battle with Tavarian. But that's just... Yeah, that's just kind of one of those acts of God, isn't it? I mean, no one was specifically at that fault.
Yeah, I mean, that corner is treacherous for stuff like this, and those kids can be very aggressive. So to see incidents at that corner is not uncommon, but it's always not nice to see, really. Luckily, it's not real life, and there's no one in danger, but this is still still competitive racing, and no one wants to be taken out in that way.
Speaking of competitive racing, one car that's not having competitive pace on the straight is Barnett, who got absolutely floored by Verstappen. That super powerful, basically Japanese Bentley, isn't it? In terms of power, just absolutely floored Barnett in the Porsche going into Tamburello. And as we've seen with moves against Barnett, he seems to be able to hold his own around everything except for the main straight, where they just seem to push past him like he's nothing.
Yeah, you can see Barnett closes up to the Nissan in quite a few of the sort of slower speed corners there. But the Nissan just uses that grunt of the twin turbo V6 to pull away, and as we're seeing the flat six of the Porsche, while it sounds absolutely amazing, it sometimes can't keep up with these twin turbo cars on the straight. So they really have to make use of their minimum speeds and their cornering ability to keep up and make passes. So on a track like this, it can be quite interesting for them, as we see the Tavarians coming through. Oh, and there's a...
Was that Solheim? That looks like Solheim in the wall.
Oh, it is. So was that a mistake on Solheim? That's very unfortunate.
And that's Verstappen got on past Solheim as well. And so, well, yeah, that's Verstappen ahead of Solheim. And that's a mistake that he just didn't need to make. Yeah, that's Verstappen now effectively in P1.
Yeah, P1 at the moment. Wow, that's very unexpected. I mean, we saw that Solheim was lapping very consistently there, and I wonder if that's maybe been a bit of an incident with a back marker, or just got it wrong at Branti Alta. But you know, he could have damage now, and may have lost his chance to even fight back for this win. So there's a big change of positions there.
Definitely, but now Verstappen and Tavarian have got passed into P1, P2 effectively, because the other cars ahead of him still haven't pitted, so they're pretty much ahead. But it looks like Solheim's still got damage. He's kicking sand up pretty much everywhere he goes at the moment. It's not a sight we wanted to see, but it's definitely picked up the action for us, especially now Verstappen and Tavarian are so close together. Can barely fit a cigarettes paper between them, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, it looks like very bad damage for Solheim. His car's all over the place. It looks like the balance is just completely thrown. And that might be
has a bit of front damage there with how he looked like he was in the wall, and obviously that's going to affect the front end and cause a lot of understeer and unbalance in the car. So hopefully he can continue, but you know, you don't want to be having more incidents with other cars. So yeah, he's really struggling with that front right. You can see the car pushing there coming out of Branti Alta. So yeah, very important for Solheim. He seemed to be in control of the race up till that point. But you know, as we say, this is racing. He's somewhat had that win taken away from him.
Yeah, it looks like it's all over the place. But interesting though, he's not going into the pits. I would just dive into the pits as soon as I could, but it looks like Elgard has managed to get past as well, ahead of him in a Mercedes. And there's this Elgard's just walking away from Solheim right now. He can barely get into sixth.
Yeah, he seems to be really struggling. I mean, we know that the McLaren isn't maybe as strong as the Mercedes on the straights, but you can see he's having to fight the car quite a lot more than he previously had to keep it on the straight and narrow. So it seems like he's got some damage. Whether you know you can drive around it and adapt to the damage he's got, I think you know he probably has the capability to do so. But very unfortunate. But I mean, it's brought these two, Verstappen and Tavarian, very close together now for effectively the battle for the lead. And two similar cars, front mid-engine, turbocharged, one's V8, one's V6. But yeah, these guys are going to be battling out to the bitter end, I think.
And that's exactly what we wanted to see as well. We were hoping for a proper fight at the front end. As much as I feel sorry for Solheim, he was walking away with the win too easily, in my opinion. And now we get to actually see some proper fighting action up at the front for the win today, which is still going, and we've still got 26 minutes left.
Yeah,
I just don't know how these guys are going to keep fighting all the way to the end for 26 minutes. I don't want to put a commentator's curse, but I think I can smell a bit of an incident coming.
Maybe, but I mean, we sort of did put the commentator's curse on Solheim, but it seems like these two are very close now. and the power on this race is very similar. So it'll be interesting to see what happens through Tamburello here.
Definitely.
Tidy.
I'll swap back to the helicam so we can get a better view of the action. Luckily, Taveri manages to cover off Taveri very nicely into the braking zone there.
It seems like the Mercedes is a lot more comfortable on the curbing as well. I mean, we saw the Mercedes a bit earlier on in Variante Alta take a lot more of that curve on the first right to get a good run through the left, and the Nissan seems to struggle at one as it does there on power on the curve. So Taverian's right alongside him for closer, but as we see, you know, Verstappen's just kept him, but behind had the inside line, just made sure he ran his line out and keeping the Mercedes behind, running up the hill. So hopefully these guys can keep this battle going throughout the race.
Yeah, they're going so fast the camera crew can barely keep up with them as they go around Piratella. But now, this is the crucial part for these two, because they're both powerful cars compared to the other cars, which may be considered more agile. But it looks like Tavarian, he's not letting up on the pressure. He's still having a little look on the inside, just being like, you know what, I'm still here, and I could make a move, but I'm not gonna.
He just needs to keep the pressure on Verstappen at this point in time, because ultimately they've got 24 minutes and he just needs to drive clean, because if Verstappen makes a mistake, he's right there to show his nose or make that lunge or capitalise on the mistake that Verstappen might make. So it's basically who's going to make the first mistake is going, you know, the other guy's going to win. These guys need to keep it clean.
Definitely, it's one of those things where I kind of want to go away and look at the other battles happening out on track, but you don't want to. Oh wait, that's someone in the pits. And that's someone else going into the pits. Here we go. This is the action we want to see. Currently watching Ignacy Bucek, but he's got Phil Varley right behind him. But it looks like Phil Varley's trying to have him to fight with Shemetinsky, and it's just. Hang on. No, Shemetinsky is still 12 seconds behind, but that's a back marker that he was trying to get past.
Yeah.
And even then, that just makes everything a bit more spicy. But even more spicy is gunpowder therapy was given a stop-go 30 seconds, and I assume that's for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, we were saying he was lapping so consistently, and if he makes no mistakes, he's going to be there or thereabouts, and when you know, in the top 10 probably. But yeah, as we've seen, you make these mistakes. Stop-go penalty of 30 seconds, that is an eternity in racing. When you're sat there for 30 seconds, it feels more like 5 minutes.
Definitely, we're giving away curses for free right now, aren't we, James?
It seems that way.
But the other person we were talking about being very clean is Ulrich, who's, well, we were speaking earlier about how he just needs to keep his nose clean, because he was just chugging along. Stop-go 30 seconds being thrown out left, right, and centre to Bennesley and Barnett. Do you know what I think has happened, James? I think I've forgotten that there might be race stewards on today.
Ooh, that's interesting. People getting punished for mistakes.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I wasn't very well prepared today, unfortunately, guys. So blame me. But yeah, once the stop-go 30 seconds being thrown out. Yeah, hopefully you can, if you're a supporter and one of your, well, people you're supporting have got to stop-go 30 seconds, I wouldn't get too curious and ask them, because it might be a bit of a sore spot for the next few days. But no sore spot from Ulrich, who manages to get past Snell Train, coming out of Acqua Minerale and going into Variante Alta. He just seals the deal and walks away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just kept it clean. He got the seal deal there, as you said. As we see Faria getting caught up in this pack ahead of him. Is that?
It's okay, he's the back marker. That is Solheim continuing with the race. But yeah, he's still going, but he's also still battling Voodoo and Rogers.
Yeah.
In that fight there. It's just with the amount of damage he had as well, it's just a bit mental.
Yeah,
but what will really annoy him is Voodoo hasn't pitted yet. Voodoo's essentially holding Solheim up along with Rogers. And it's just opening Solheim to an attack from Rogers, especially with the damage he's got right now.
Yeah, I mean, Solheim's really trying to defend here, but into the Ravatsas, but his car's damaged. He doesn't really need to worry about Voodoo at this point because Voodoo is ultimately going to pit. But as you said, Voodoo's as we see
There he goes.
there, but it's what held him up enough to back up Solheim into Rogers there, and cause a bit of a headache for him, especially with that front end damage as we've seen. So.
That's a very late defensive move from Solheim. Not quite in time compared against Rogers, but Rogers both walk away. Luckily, completely fine. I'm sure Rogers will remember that next time and kind of get the elbows out a bit more and be like, you know what? If you're wanting to fight, I'll throw down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that could have been a nasty accident, but luckily they came away a bit somewhat unscathed. Solheim definitely getting his elbows out there and maybe defending a little bit late coming into Cambrello, but no one came off worse for wear there, so hopefully these guys can keep it clean for the rest of the race and have a good battle.
The battle that's still ongoing is between Verstappen and Severian for the race win at the moment. I know there's Saver in P3 and P4, however Olivier Curtin and Dehor still haven't pitted, although Dehor's just gone into the pits now. Curtin leaving it very late for a pit stop as well. In my opinion, I would have gone for the pits ages ago. But each to their own. But still, this battle is... I don't know how none of them have gone off or what, but that's some insane trust between those two to keep up the pressure and keep up for defence for this long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw Taverian there absolutely send it over Varian Alta, especially that first apex, and 2 wheels on the grass. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's maybe racking up the track limits penalties. So these guys have got to be careful for that because if they're pushing this hard for this long, then they're going to be pushing the limits of the track. And if one of them gets the drive through, I mean that's it. That's race over for them. They've lost this race in reality. So. These guys are fighting hard, but they must remember to keep it clean.
Definitely, to give some more airtime to some of the people further back, because it's been a bit, kind of samey at the front. We've got Marco Sky, who's currently under pressure from Adam Sharp, both Lamborghini drivers. But it looks like a fair amount of damage on Miko Sky's car at the front, but Adam Sharp, his car looks clean as a whistle, so I wonder if he's got a little bit of a performance advantage right now, if he's ready to take on Sky.
Yeah, I mean, front end damage around this track is pretty brutal. I mean, you've got a lot of sort of, as you come up over the crest here into the braking zone, you want that front end to keep you down on the ground so you can have confidence in the brakes and especially through some of these high speed corners, especially this first right into Akmirale here, you definitely want that confidence in the front end. So if he does have that bit of front end damage, he's going to be destroying those front tyres, and basically Sharp behind is going to be right on him, and it seems that he's closed that gap already. So we could see a battle between these two Lamborghinis for position quite soon. And Sharp seems to have less damage on his car, so he should, in theory, be able to get a move done.
You should, in theory, but another two guys who have been having a battle are these the two buddies, RWB Audi and RWB Helmets. They've been having a battle for a bit as well. And yeah, it's BMW versus the Japanese BMW, isn't it? These two are just power. They're just powerhouses at this point. But it looks like Helmet is taking up a lot of the track, and he does give Helmet a little bit. He does give Audi a little bit of a love tap, but it looks like he kind of backed off a little bit and was like, "Sorry, let's just keep going. Let's have some fun. Let's keep going."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the respect between the drivers there, and that can be seen up and down this field. I saw it earlier with the Plate and Nicone and the BMW and the Ferrari, I believe. So, it's hard racing, but respectful, and I think that's what we've seen there. You can push the limit and get up close to the drivers, but if you make those mistakes, you sort of have to concede that was your fault, and that can be seen throughout the field, and it's great to see because then it doesn't really get the stewards involved because it sort of solves the problem itself out on track.
Meanwhile, we've got Shemintiski chasing down Tom Weaver. Weaver's been he's done actually pretty well. I remember seeing him down in the P20s, wasn't he? And he's now currently up in P14.
Yeah, he's really pulled back. I think he's been doing really well in that Bentley. It's good to see the Bentleys coming up through the field because they seemed to qualify a bit lower, but there seems to be their race paces and consistency has really been up there. I mean, I believe that the Bentleys aren't as confident on the curbs, especially the higher curbs. From what I've driven on the game, they seem to be a bit nervous on curb. But if they've got their setup nailed for this track, as you can see there, they've nailed that curb and it's really just taken it. So it seems like they've got the car under them for race pace, but hopefully they can just keep these positions and keep the guys behind them. But it seems, from looking up the field, it seems like the Mercedes seems to be quite strong along with the Aston Martin, so a few other cars.
100%. Like, it is good to see the Bentley, although for those who follow the Constructors' Championships that runs on Tuesday, the Bentley's actually been leading the entire thing. From the very start, they've just been stomping. Unfortunately, as a now McLaren driver during the Constructors' Championship in last, thanks Crawford. It's just gone downhill. So I am really happy to see the McLarens up there, and yeah, it's good to see something other than a Bentley up in the front, personally. But yeah, it's
I have a bit of a soft spot for the Bentley. I think it's quite an interesting car because of how big it is and wide, and it looks heavy, but it just seems to perform out on track. And when you see these things up close, especially the Bentleys, when the guys have the bonnets on these things, if you're standing, say, 10 meters back from the car, you can't see the engine at all. It's sunk so deep and low into the chassis of the car and really back up against the firewall that it is an out-and-out race car. And people think, these are fairly similar to the road car they're based on, which is true. But they have been heavily modified underneath to be proper race cars. And you can see that up and down the field. Even the McLarens, they retain their standard road car monocoque, but they still have that roll cage on the inside for safety reasons, and they've really been thoroughly thought through to be race cars.
Yeah, it's not like BTCC where, well, it is pretty much BTCC, isn't it? Because that's just a shell plots on top of a race car.
Sort of. They're a bit more agricultural, I'd say, than GT cars. But
you love that word when you're talking about BTCC, don't you?
Oh yes. Yeah, they're not as, they don't have as much of the finesse, I'd say, in the GT3 cars, but the racing and the entertainment in British touring cars is pretty much unrivaled. The amount of rubbing and racing they get away with is pretty exceptional, and that's why they draw these huge crowds. And if you started rubbing GT3 cars as much as they do, it's going to cost you a lot of money with all these carbon fiber panels. So yeah, that's why you see more endurance style racing with GT2 cars.
Well, I don't know how he's done it, but Olivier Curtin is currently in P1. He is being hunted down by Verstappen. Verstappen, it seems like he's not too happy. He's not P1 anymore. No idea how Curtin got there. He kind of slipped in under the radar, didn't he?
I think Curtin may have dragged out his pit window to the last sort of dregs of his fuel, to be honest, and got himself on fresher tyres possibly. But yeah, as we see, Verstappen is really challenging that portion to Tamburello, which is to be expected with the power difference between the two. But Curtin really comes back through that second section of Tamburello with a change of direction and pulls that gap again. So this is a real sort of somewhat fire and ice situation. And, the Nissan being quick on the straight and Porsche being quick in the corners. So these guys are going to really have to pick their places to attack and defend and really make use of their cars and their capabilities. Not to forget that Verstappen also has to hold off Varian and the Mercedes behind him, which is a lot stronger in similar places to the Mercedes. So this is going to be an interesting three-way fight for the lead, which we didn't really expect earlier on, with Solheim have such a dominant lead really up until the closing stages.
I mean, yeah, it is just mental. I wasn't really Olivier Curtin was kind of under my radar. I just didn't notice him much, and just seeing him now in P1, I thought that was a visual error. But fair play to him. I've seen him drive the Porsche before, and he seems really comfortable in it.
Yeah, I mean, this just shows. I mean, he could have been lapping consistently, really keeping his nose clean, not getting in anyone's way, and now he's in P1. You know, I mean, that's the beauty of this style of racing, and the top sort of 5 cars aren't that too far away from each other. Actually, 6 cars are within sort of a 5 to 7 second gap. So these guys are really, you know, after an hour and 20 minutes, they've got 10 minutes, just under 10 minutes left, and they're battling tooth and nail to get these last positions, and that really just shows how consistent and clean they've been.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Solheim did lose out. It seems he's dropped down the order quite a bit. I wonder if he's retired, because I don't see him on the timing screen at the moment. But yeah, it's fantastic to see this 3-way battle, especially between, I was going to say 3 different cars, but as you said, Nissan and Mercedes are very similar. But to see this kind of, it's almost like the dogs being set after a fox in this kind of scenario, with the Porsche being very nimble and agile. But Curtin has to choose his defensive lines very carefully. As we saw in Tamburello a lap ago, he chose the inside on entry because he knew he could outbrake Verstappen, and he knew that he could kind of hold it, and he knew that Verstappen would have to tug him behind him. Because there's no way that Nissan was going to go around the outside of Porsche going in there, unless Verstappen was, well, I don't know if he was doing like Adderall or something. Like, he just was no way going to go around the outside there.
Yeah, I think Curtin knew that the strength of the Porsche there in Tamburello, and being able to get that thing changed the direction, and Verstappen just couldn't answer that with the Nissan, unfortunately, and that's why we see him pull that gap again. But that's the closest we've seen them thus far, so if Curtin can keep that gap, and that's going to be crucial for him, really, because as soon as Verstappen is under a second, which is sort of within toe distance of a slipstream effect, as we can see here now, he's closed another 10th there. He'll probably close 2 to 3 tenths now, and is really showing his nose to Curtin, who seems very confident on the brakes, knew that he could get a good release into Tamburello and keep Verstappen behind him. But as soon as Verstappen gets within 8 tenths of that car in front on the straight there, he's got the slipstream effect and can really close up very aggressively. But as we see, oh wow!
Oh, it looks like Curtin led him into the gravel slightly there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can see Verstappen's pushing very hard to keep up with Curtin in the corners, and that's caused a mistake there, as we've seen in the exit of Villeneuve, and it's allowed Tavarian to catch right back up to the back of Verstappen there, and this is what's great about this, because they're going to be battling amongst each other all the way, and if you can force mistakes out of your competitors, that's going to be a very good option for overtaking. So these guys are doing some great work racing here.
Fantastic racing up there, but it looks like Solheim went into the pits for a little bit, and it looks like he's retired from the race, from what I'm seeing, which is unfortunate, especially after such a fantastic first half of the race. But it just kind of goes to show that a small mistake can kind of mess everything up, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's so demoralising, especially when you've been leading for so long, to then have that either mistake, or we didn't see what happened. We just saw him cut to him in the wall. So whether that was getting pulled by a back marker or just a simple mistake by himself, either way he's going to be annoyed. So to have damage and be consistently dropping down that leaderboard with the damage, it's very demoralising, and I can understand why if someone would back out in that situation. But sometimes it's worth just ploughing on, seeing where you end up, because there's so many opportunities available out on tracks we've seen from Solheim's commiserations, really.
Oh wait, there he is. It's in P38. I just can't read. But yeah, as I totally agree with what you're saying, though. That, I mean, I had it on last Tuesday where I just had 2 absolute shockers of a race, and the second one I just had to stop driving because I knew that if I kept going, I would end up my head wasn't in the right place. I knew I'd cause more incidents than try and bolster everyone else's experience by keep on driving. As a lapped car, I knew I'd just end up causing incidents, so I had to leave. But yeah, luckily Solheim is still in the race in P38. He will still get some points towards the championship, and at least he knows now. Yeah,
pitted for mechanical issues, maybe.
But at least he knows now that he has the pace to fight those guys up front. And yeah, hopefully he'll be a comeback story that we get to see.
Yeah, I think one person we've been mentioning that isn't actually up the top there is Moore, and him being a few laps down but still coming through the field the way he did and passing these top guys, it just shows that he's got some considerable pace in that Bentley, but just hasn't had the opportunities to show it really up at the front. So he's really shown that he can drive.
100%. One battle that is still ongoing is between Pater and Sky. These guys, well, we said earlier that they'd still be battling it out, but it looks like Sharp managed to kind of get past Sky and has also made up another 2 places past Clinch and Pater.
Yeah, he seemed to have a clean car. We saw that Sky maybe had a bit of front end damage, just the visuals alone. So to see Sharp maybe carve his way through a little bit more is not unsurprising. So I mean, those Lamborghinis are a good fun car to drive, but it doesn't seem like that chassis is as competitive on this circuit as say some of the Mercedes and McLaren chassis.
Definitely. Currently looking at Andre Mol now, and he's battling Schaefer, and well, this is kind of like, I know people who drive Astons don't like hearing it in the game, but it is a very much beginner-friendly car. It's so stable, and it's just a very much good all-rounder. However, that Lexus, in a sprint race, it's very, very powerful, and with 3 minutes on the clock left to go, it very much is a sprint race between these two, and I really want to see how Andre does in trying to get past Schaefer for those extra points.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these two, we're seeing it up and down the field with these battles for position. I mean, you've got guys fighting for first and second that are fighting tooth and nail as much as the guys that are fighting for 22nd position, so no one's leaving anything on the table here, and I'm sure these guys will not want to lose a position this late in the race.
Yeah, well, one place that we've not looked at for a while, and I'm sure you still want to look at, is between Olivier Kurtzen, Verstappen and Tavarian. However, there's not been much change between them. In fact, it's remained the exact same. Typical Verstappen trying to chase down Kurtzen while also trying to hold on to Tavarian, and
I think Verstappen's sort of been the ping-pong ball between the two paddles here. He sort of just bounced between the two, whether he's attacking Curtin or defending Tavarian. It's sort of been an interesting battle. At least the BMW, which seems to be a lapped car, seems to be pulling over to the side to allow the leader to come through, but that could affect, as we're seeing now, Verstappen there, and give a bit of breathing room to Curtin. So that's some way you can use this traffic to your advantage.
And now Tavarian's getting held up as well now by this BMW, and again, the BMW has full right to do exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, he's on the racing line. He didn't have to move off to allow the leaders through, but he did, which is very courteous of him. But yeah, as we've seen, that's given everyone there a little bit of breathing room, and with the last 1 minute 40 seconds to go, really, of the countdown to the final lap, it's going to be interesting for sure whether they can close back up again.
Definitely, I'm going to keep my eye on it. But a battle that's also been going on is between Ruling and Buchek. These two guys that we're seeing on stream now, they've been yo-yoing between 0.5 second gap and 0.1 second gap, and it looks like Buchek he can get up to Ruling, but he just can't make the pass. And it's one thing to be faster than someone and catch up to them, but it's quite another thing to actually make the move and get past.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's choosing a place to make that move as well. I mean, Buchek could be sitting behind the Aston, knowing where he's strong and weak, and maybe just mounting that attack, letting his tyres cool off a bit to have that optimum grip to give him that opportunity to overtake. As we've seen, with some drivers, they like to leave it to the very last minute to make that overtake, so the car behind them can't learn where they're strong or weak to come up with a counter attack. So whether he's doing that or whether he's just maybe struggling to get past, we'll see.
Well, right now it's there's 30 seconds left on the clock. I don't think there's going to be enough time for Curtin to get round for another lap. So we're going to stick with them, see if Verstappen can finally make the pass around Curtin for the race win. But from what I'm seeing right now, James, it doesn't look like it. But well, we both know
to keep it clean.
yeah, we both know anything can happen at any point until the very last bit of the race. But Curtin keeping it nice and clean as he goes through Variante Alta. Although as we see Verstappen going very wide, and if Tavarian hadn't followed, that could have been super juicy for those two. As they drive now down to Ravazza. But it looks like Tavarian he's just not close enough, is he, for that move on Verstappen?
If he hadn't made that mistake, he may have had an opportunity into the Ravazzas there, but following Verstappen through, he's made that similar mistake, probably over the curbing, but it seems like that's been sewn up, to be honest, between those top three.
Well,
yeah.
The positions of the top three are cemented in the history books of RWB in terms of the 2021 GT series, and yeah, that was brilliant racing. However, we've still got racing going on. We've still got wait, let me get my bearings. We've still got Nepone trying to hold off Shamansitsky, and they're coming down now to Ravazza, and it's still possible for Shamansitsky to still make the move on Nepone if he goes for a late dive, and no, he's going to keep it nice and clean.
I think that would have been very much a chancy move there if he had tried to dive down the inside.
Yeah, maybe the stewards weren't too pleased with that, would they?
Yeah, it was a bit of it wasn't close enough, really.
No, very
we've seen some great racing today, and these guys are crossing the line and definitely cementing their finishing positions. It's been great up and down the field, and yeah, O'Kane coming out on top, which we didn't expect early on in the race.
No, definitely. I was very surprised. But as you can see on screen now, we've got Olivier Curtin in P1 with Verstappen taking silver and Tavarian on the bottom step of the podium. However, he is on the podium, unlike, well, I don't want to rub it in, but yeah, unlike Solheim, who fantastic first half of the race for Solheim, but unfortunately an error, a punt, we're not too sure what happened, but unfortunately that sent him off. But that is the results for the top three. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully we weren't too boring. I know I always say it, but hopefully everyone enjoyed tonight. We've got more racing again for the next 3 weeks in GT3 and then GT4 for the 4 weeks after that. So definitely be sure hit that subscribe if you want to see more of that, or if you want to see the Constructors' Championship taking place as well on ACC. We've got that running on Tuesdays, so definitely stick around for that. James, my man, do you have anything to add on?
No, I think you've pretty much covered it all. I mean, it's been great racing this evening, and I'm sure you'll see that throughout the coming weeks in GT3 and furthermore in GT4. I mean, with less error in GT4, more relying on mechanical grip, it's going to be tight, I think.
Definitely, I can't wait to see everything kind of ramp up. We get to see some more action next week, and of course, yeah, as I said, definitely subscribe. And yeah, check out all the other past streams, past videos. We've got endurance series coming up, so definitely check it out. And if you want to join these races, please check out RWB on Discord in the link below. But as always, I've been Josh. James is with me as well, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. So yeah, don't race alone, race RWB.